In this video, I want to talk to you about how to screen potential suppliers with particular reference to Alibaba. Now, the starting point for this is having a product that you want to search for, and I recommend that you go for an exact product name search, and you take the exact product name from the competitor listing that you've identified on Amazon. So in the last example, we've looked at a 3-compartment microwave safe food container. That's a good starting point, because the more explicit you make it, the more specific you make it, then the tighter the search is going to be, and the more likely it is you'll end up with a short but relevant list of potential suppliers. So what are you looking for? Well, what you really want is a quality product, and it's quality in both manufacture and materials. You want a reliable supplier. You want somebody who is going to be able to supply you consistently over time so that you can keep your stock levels up. You want a fair price. Now, there's an awful lot that goes into the price negotiation, but you need to understand what's good for you, and you also need to have a little bit of respect about what's good for them. But remember, they probably are not going to think very much about what's fair for you. They are simply going to try and get what they want. So, this is a culturally uneven negotiation that you're going to be facing. Now, you should also realize that the listing on Alibaba is not necessarily the ultimate manufacturer. It may well be a middleman, so you need to be prepared for that, and you need to be, in your discussions with them, you need to try and winkle this out. One clever trick, however, is to translate the search term you're looking for into Chinese using Google Translate, and then search for the product on Alibaba in Chinese, because by doing that, you may well find a much cheaper price. Really clever little trick there. To start with, what I recommend you do is that you only look at suppliers that fulfill 4 key criteria: that they offer trade assurance, that they're a gold supplier, that they have an on-site check completed, and that they are an assessed supplier. And all this is doing is basically saying they are in the top category of Alibaba suppliers. So you're eliminating a whole load of risk by only dealing with the people who have passed the most stringent restrictions. Now, you can also, if you wish, and if the option becomes up as available, specify a location of the manufacturer. In the case of this food container, all the manufacturers that came up were in China, but for other products, you may well find that there are suppliers in other parts of the world, and you may be able to choose one in North America, which would make life a lot easier on a number of fronts. Now, let's look at some other things that you can check. Does the supplier offer you a valid address, telephone number, and website? Does the email that they provide to you match their company name, or are they offering you a Hotmail or some other generic type email? Use the Whois function. Go into Whois online and see if their web registration is actually tied to the company name information they provided you with. That's quite a useful background check as well. You can also go onto the Alibaba forum and put in the supplier's name and see if there's any discussions about them. Maybe other people have had problems with them in the past, and they've flagged them up in the forum. Just as equally, they may have had very good experiences with them in the past, and they may be getting good references on the forum, but it's definitely worth checking that. In terms of payment, it is beneficial to you if they will accept PayPal or escrow payments, although they're unlikely to accept an escrow payment for your first order. That is definitely safer than a direct money transfer, where getting refunds is very much more difficult. Look at the invoicing arrangements they provide with you. Are they in English, and are they clearly written? Do they include clear terms and conditions, often printed on the back? And does the detail on the invoice match the company information that you've collected to date? It's not unreasonable to ask them to provide you with photographs. Ask for photographs of their factory, of their products, and their products in manufacture. And when ready, this is a really good one, ask for a photo of your finished products packed, ready to go, but the box still open, so you can see the products inside it, before they ship and before you send your final payment. Now, I don't want you to just take their word for it, and by that I mean very simply that when you approach various suppliers, and ask them if they can provide you with an item, they will all almost certainly say yes, whether they actually can or not, because they may well then start to either put it together or source it from somewhere else and sell it through to you. So it is very important that you get from them samples, and whenever possible, ask for references of their customers, and ideally customers who are in either your country or in the US, if that's where you're mainly going to be selling to. And it's really, really worth investing in samples from every potential supplier you're looking at. Don't just stop at one. This is money which is well spent up front if you're going to avoid a disaster later on. And another little trick is, if you find a supplier you really like, then put in another inquiry with a completely different name and email and buy another sample of them and see if you get the same product and the same sample quality. You may obviously have to send to a different address, but it's a double check to see if they are providing consistent quality. Now let's talk about references, because these are important. As I said, try and get them in your country or in the US. You want to get the contact details, name, telephone number, and definitely follow through on them. Definitely get hold of these people and speak to them. The sorts of questions you want to be asking them is, did they have any problems with the supplier? What price did they pay, if they're prepared to tell you that? How long have they been a customer? And would they recommend the supplier? Also check that these people who are providing these references are themselves legitimate, that their contact information and their website is consistent with what they're telling you. What you don't want to have been set up with is with a fake reference where it's some friend of the supplier who's basically providing you with a duff reference. Now, we will get into a price negotiation, and I want to give you a heads up on this. You must be prepared to walk away if you're not getting the terms you want. You must understand that the cultural differences between you and particular China, but it applies to anywhere in the world. There are always cultural differences in negotiations, style and behavior and ethics. And I'm not putting anybody down here, but you do need to be prepared to take a hard line and not expect them to have the same approach to negotiation as you do. It's very likely, if you're dealing with a Chinese supplier, that if you walk away, they will come back to you after a few days and come back with a revised proposal of some kind. It still may not meet your requirements, but you must be prepared to walk away and then be patient. I really stress, business cultures vary around the world, and I'm not saying they're better or worse, but I am stressing that they are different. Everything in this lecture applies to a greater or less extent to the other sites that you are going to potentially be looking at. There are one or two things which are specific to Alibaba, but most of these things which I'm telling you about in this lecture are things which you can transfer to the other sites, because they really apply to the suppliers rather than the sites themselves. So that's it for this lecture, screening for potential suppliers in Alibaba. I hope you found the information here really useful, and I look forward to seeing you very soon in another lecture.